Hey, hi all. Let me explain you today on curves in Lightroom. So curves is a very powerful tool with which you can change the colors and exposure. So if you see, this is the starting, and I captured this image in my mobile in a raw format. So when you capture your in a raw format, you may not see the actual true colors, but it will try to get as much as possible with the sensor it has in the image for that camera. So when you take the photo, make sure you also need to have an artistic view of that image to explain some story. So the story behind this, it shows it has a pleasant sunset, and you see a dazzling colors in the image. So I would rather satisfy with the end result as this way, uh, even though I start at this point. So I will explain you how to achieve this. Okay, so first let's revert back to the original version. So you can see, let me go to the original version and apply. So you will have curves in the light adjustments. So go here. So this is a very powerful but hidden, which requires little bit knowledge on how curves work. So let me also enable my histogram. Okay, so if you see here, so if I increase exposure, I can increase the exposure. The rightmost corner, right topmost corner is your highlights, and the bottommost corner was in the left is your shadows. So if I increase highlights, so you are seeing the light increasing in the curves in the histograms towards the right, which is my highlights. So eventually the light's exposure is getting increased in the highlights. So this is the increase of exposures in the highlight. And midtones are the highlight is the brightest point in your brightest point in your image. And shadows, blacks are the blackmost point in your image. So in between black to white, uh, the gray points are your midtones. So this is my midtones. If you see, when I am increasing this, the exposure in the mid range is partially increasing towards the right, which is in the histogram, which is the exposure shift. So I'm bringing back the exposure back in the midtone. So if you see, this is the, and if I decrease, I am decreasing the light in the shadows, and if I am increasing, I am increasing the light in the shadows. So if I increase completely up, you are saying there are no shadows, and indirectly it is nothing but a white image. And if I bring back my shadows, you can see some contrast between whites and blacks. Okay, so let's leave it as is, and you can leave as is. If you double click, it will take you to the original point. Okay, so, and this is all about the exposure in the line. So if you see the red, the rightmost corner is a highlight. If you increase reds in the high, it increase the reds in the highlight areas. So if you see, if you see, the reds only, the no other color is shifting other than excuse me, other than the reds. So if I'm increasing red in the highlights, you can observe the histogram. Slowly red is getting increased in the higher highlight areas. Okay, say if I decrease now red in the highlights, you are seeing a color shift, which is the opposite color of red is cyan. And cyan increases in the highlights. And similarly, if I increase red in the shadows, you can see the shadows. And if I decrease red, the opposite to red is cyan, which is bluish tinge, that you can see it in the uh, shadows. And now green opposite is magenta. And if I increase green in the highlights, see the green shift in the exposure, which is nothing but green increases in highlight areas. And if I decrease, you are seeing magenta in the highlight highlights. So similarly, if I increase greens, it increases the greens in the shadows, decrease the increase the magenta in the shadows. And blue opposite is yellow. So if I increase blues in the highlight, so you can see in the highlight areas blue color is increasing, and if I decrease the blues, yellow increases in the highlight areas. Okay. So similarly, if I increase the blue in the and sorry, if I decrease the blue in the shadows, which increase the yellow in the shadows, and if I increase blues in the shadows, which will increase the blues in the shadow areas. Okay. So now let me bring back all the colors which I was talking. So if you know, like if you see, usually the when there is a sunset, you see a pinkish or orange or red tinges in the skies or clouds in the highlight areas. So if I increase now in the reds, so you are seeing the rightmost corner where the sunset is happening actually, next to that area. So it increases the red in the highlights. Okay. And I want to decrease red. Bear with me, double click. So let me keep as is. So let me decrease red in the shadow area, so which increases the cyan in the shadows. So these two are complementary colors. Like if I increase red and if I decrease red, it is the shadows. Okay. And similarly, I want little magenta in the highlights. So you guessed it right. If I want to get the magenta in the highlights, so I need to reduce a little bit green in the highlights. And I'm okay with the shadows, or I can little reduce the magentas in the shadows, so which will give punch in the shadows. Okay. And I want blues in my sky, which are the highlight areas. So if I increase blue, the red turns into purple. And if I decrease blue in the shadows, which increases the yellowish tinge. Now this is a uh, perfect where I can start with. And let us adjust little bit exposure. I would like to reduce the blown out areas, so I slowly reduce the highlights. And let me increase the shadows, so that you can see little details in the shadow areas. Okay. So I'm done with my curves. So let's say just little bit exposure. Okay. Reduce the highlights. So and I would like to bring little shadows as well, and little whites, and reduce the blacks. Okay. So this is pretty much good. And let us also bring little blue in the sky. So yeah, I think this would be pretty much good. Okay. This is and increase little magenta. So let us bring some more blue, some more vibrance into the color. So if you see, I think this would be my sweet spot. So photography is all about two things: one, framing, and pre-production, which is nothing but what is your frame and how are you going, I mean, what you are going to capture. So planning about at what time you are taking the photos. And the other thing is post production. So which is this is my planned shot, and this is where I would like to end with. So it's all about telling a story, and this tells like it is taken in a very good sunsetting timing. So these two buildings are king and queen buildings. So if you see, one is king building and the other one is a queen building, which is very nearer to my area. So I just need to walk 1 mile from my home to get this shot. Okay. So that's it for today. And if you have any questions and if you have any requests, please feel free to ping me. I can come up with a new tutorial based on your need. If you have any images that you want me to edit, feel free to share to me. I would I would give what would be my take on that particular image. Okay. See you guys.